It's now been 1 year to the day that KJ Inafune launched the Kickstarter campaign for Red Ash. With Mighty No. 9 now unleashed on the public and getting mediocre reviews, it's time we take a look back at his other Kickstarter campaign. It's amazing to watch the decline of Inafune's character from the first campaign to the next. Mighty No. 9 was full of hope and excitement. Red Ash, on the other hand, well...
こんにちは、稲船圭司です。マイティナンバー9の制作もやっと終わってですね、次の挑戦をしたいと思ってます。次の挑戦は、昔、アニメの世界を駆け回るっていうゲームを作ろうとしたことがあります。あの時はですね、時代も早すぎて、なかなか受け入れられなかったことがあったんですけど、そういうことを考えてるときに
In our Mighty No. 9 episode, we talked about how the Mega Man spiritual successor was the first game Inafune was leading, aside from KO King of Pirates, which got cancelled and lost its publisher $3.8 million. Red Ash was to be his third game as lead, behind the non-crowdfunded game Recore. So what exactly is Red Ash? Well, just like Mighty No. 9, I'm already getting sick of saying that name by the way, it's a spiritual successor to Mega Man. Although instead of the more nebulous concept of a Mega Man game as a whole, Red Ash is, or maybe was, looking to reinvent one game in particular. Mega Man Legends. Legends was a unique game in the franchise, and still is, and it's more of an open-world action-adventure platformer with RPG elements and a focus on story, rather than Nintendo hard 2D platformer shooting. Imagine a blend of Shenmue, Metal Arms glitch in the system, and throw in some Mega Man and you have a good idea. There's really not anything else quite like it in gaming, let alone the Mega Man series, so fans were obviously very eager to get more of it. There was even a prototype version of a third game, well, fourth technically, that was going to be released to the public as a sort of apology for Capcom taking so long to make it. It was finally on the verge of being released when it was cancelled because... reasons? This upset fans more than probably any other form of a classic franchise being thrown by the wayside because its reincarnation was so close. Well, that's where Inafune came in. Red Ash, the indelible legend. It certainly is. Running free in an anime-inspired game world, embark on a near-future sci-fi adventure in search of the legendary legacy. Inafune and his team at Concept were seeking $800,000 to bring this game to life. And yeah, it failed as you probably know by now, yet it's still getting made anyway. That's something we'll come back to. So once we scroll past all these updates that were added later, we'll get to what the campaign was actually about. At least we're probably supposed to. The section at the top called What is Red Ash is more or less useless garbage, telling us that it's a KJ Inafune game and one or two other people working on it. Then there's the section about the anime. Oh yes, there's an anime being planned for this too. But unlike this terribly set up Kickstarter page, I'm going to actually explain what the hell the project is first, before talking about an anime series and a line of novelty corn-on-the-cob holders. Finally, after all that, we get to the meat of the campaign, in the section called The Cal Cannon Incident and Red Ash. Red Ash is a very different project from a retro action game like Mighty No. 9 in terms of both scale and concept. Alright, let's hit pause for a second already. They say Red Ash is bigger in scale and concept than Mighty No. 9, and yet it was seeking less money, $100,000 less, than Mighty No. 9. Keep that little detail in mind for later on. The primary goal with Red Ash is to tell a story on a grand scale. All of the primary concepts are clearly visualized in the minds of the creative team, from the overall plot to the historical background. Even the final ending scene is planned out. However, the reality is we cannot fulfill a vision of such epic proportions with funds collected through Kickstarter. They're very keen on making sure you know they've got the game all planned out, and that they don't plan on sticking to Kickstarter with this forever. Could this be because the game only existed as an idea at the time of the Kickstarter going up? This is ludicrous looking back on it now, I'm sorry. I try to be fair and objective with these episodes, but it's so obvious this campaign was bullshit looking back on it now. Right. That's why, for this Kickstarter project, we've decided to start with a prologue chapter that we call The Cal Cannon Incident. This story has always been planned as a key jumping-on point for the universe, and we hope to use this small but dense taste of the Red Ash universe as a foundation for which to build future content. Oh, that's it then. They weren't trying to make a full game, just a prologue thing. Well, that's a-okay then. Of course, they say a couple of paragraphs later that it's going to be a full 8-hour game, so it's not going to be all that small after all, is it? And now we come to the troubling part of this campaign. There's just nothing to it. There's no gameplay shown in the pitch video, and the only visuals on offer are concept art. They released a, quote, prototype game not long after the Kickstarter started, but it's just a small hallway with the characters from Mighty No. 9 in it. And look, I've said before I don't necessarily have a problem with a company taking to Kickstarter with little more than an idea, but this is different. They weren't trying to kickstart a game. They were trying to kickstart an entire franchise of games and an anime series, and probably more stuff like movies that we didn't know about, with this, and a whole lot of promises, on top of them still developing Mighty No. 9. What could possibly make them think that that was okay? And look, it's your money. I don't begrudge you or anyone from donating to this or Mighty No. 9, but the sheer audacity here, the not giving a shit attitude that's dripping off this Kickstarter from everyone involved is just ridiculous. And it doesn't stop there. Right after the Kickstarter ended, they announced Mighty No. 9 was getting delayed, but that was only the public unveil. On July 23rd, while the Red Ash Kickstarter was still ongoing, the release date for Mighty No. 9 was changed on both GameStop and Amazon. Both Concept and Deep Silver didn't say anything about it until after the Red Ash campaign ended on August 5th. And it gets even shadier than that. This is all thanks to Kotaku, by the way. So, a producer named Nick Yu at Concept went on the company's forums and did a Q&A, and of course the delay was something that came up. First, you said the decision took time to talk between all parties involved, and that they had to weigh their options. As Kotaku pointed out, that's a load of poopy. If they made a decision a week before August 5th, how did retailers know about the delay much sooner than that? This was asked about as well. This time, you said that the publisher, Deep Silver, told the retailers that the game was going to be delayed, even though Concept wasn't entirely sure about it. So they knew a delay was necessary, but they didn't know how long it would take, and they didn't want to tell anyone just then? You told a fan right after the retailers listed the 2016 delayed release date that it was a mistake and that the game was still on track for a 2015 release. A round of applause, everybody. This just went from shady to actual scummy behavior. We all know how this game called publishing works by now. At that time, it's likely they couldn't announce a delay for legal reasons, or because Deep Silver wouldn't let them, maybe something to do with appeasing private investors, or I don't know, who knows why. But you could have easily given a non-answer, like, the retailers are free to list whatever release date they feel is viable for their merchandise, or not even say anything at all. It wouldn't have been a great look, granted, but a lot better than outright lying. You as a producer on the game, he had to be involved with these talks, or at least knew the game was going to be delayed. Maybe he was acting on his own when he first said it wasn't being delayed, but who knows? And, call me naive, but isn't keeping such a thing secret going against the decorum of Kickstarter? What happened to total transparency and sharing big news with backers? These aren't board members or investors, they're fans who willingly open their wallets to you because they believed in you and your project. And not only did you lie to them, you tried to cover it up to get more money. For talking about this already, we might as well skip the rest of the campaign and get on to the Fuse stuff, huh? On July 29th, Concept announced that a Chinese publisher named Fuse signed a publishing deal with them to publish the game. Concept would get to keep the IP, and any money raised from the Kickstarter would go towards the stretch goals. I couldn't find much info about Fuse other than their website. You might have heard from them from their console called the F1, which, well, look at it. Although don't confuse the F1 with the Ouyi. And yeah, suddenly Concept signing with a Chinese publisher like Fuse makes sense. Red Ash's Kickstarter was launched on the 4th of July, for maximum freedom points, of course. That would have given Concept 25 days to negotiate a deal. Less than that even, assuming they didn't take the Kickstarter with the news immediately after signing, that Fuse didn't immediately hear about the campaign, and or that Concept didn't start negotiating with them right away. I mean, immediately. There's no way two companies could have negotiated a deal that quickly, surely. I'm just trying to think of all the factors that go into making a deal like this. Concept wanted to keep the IP, presumably they wanted to keep the Kickstarter up and to get more funds. There wasn't even a game to pitch to Fuse. There was already some negativity surrounding Mighty No. 9. China and Japan aren't exactly best friends, and that tends to carry over to business. Plus, Concept was already working with 3 other studios on the project, and who knows how they affected things. I'm not a businessman, but surely you can't just hammer out a deal like this in 20 days or so. And why do they need to keep the Kickstarter anyway? This is a Chinese video game publisher who happen to make their own console. How desperate for money are they? Well, backers saw the massive red flags as well. Right after the deal was announced, the campaign lost around $4,000 in pledges. Not good for an ailing Kickstarter. It's hard to say how much this announcement hurt them, though how many decided not to back the project at all after this news, we'll never know. During the infamous Mighty No. 9 pre-release livestream, i.e. the It's Better Than Nothing one, Inafune was asked about Red Ash. The look on Inafune's face when he hears Red Ash is quite something. It's the look of a man who genuinely looks like he's about to burst into tears. Assuming we can trust the translator to not further editorialize, like me, his response is all over the place.
Questions about Red Ash. Can we talk about that? Like, what's going on with Red Ash? Is there anything you can say about Red Ash?
現時点でどうなってますかと言える範囲でいいです。He's making the smile like, I really didn't want that question, but we got it. So here you go, live streaming for you.
レッドアッシュはね、キックスターターとしては失敗したんで、自分たちの力でなんとかしなきゃいけないっていうところでは、自分たちの力でなんとか、楽しく作ってますよっていう。
Sorry, I just had a pizza-gasm. Ultimately, Inafune-san said, listen, the reality is the Kickstarter campaign didn't work out, as you know. And so ultimately, we're going to have to see what we can do on this end to make the game. It's never easy, and sometimes you have to cut things. My assumption is it's still going to be a good game, but it's one of the games that they really want to make. So I really hope things work out.
That whole thing speaks for itself, doesn't it? Oh, I almost forgot about the anime. Yes, much like the other game that's been mentioned more times than Red Ash by now, Inafune was already thinking about franchising it as if Red Ash were McDonald's. A Kickstarter for an anime adaptation went up at the same time as the game, and is actually a bigger mess layout-wise than the game one, but hey, that one got funded, so what do I know? The studio behind it, Studio 4 Degrees Celsius, applied for a grant in Japan and got it. Again, they got funding from Kickstarter, but I guess Fuse isn't interested in that or something. They posted an update last month stating they got the grant, before saying that the updates will now be posted to some other website, before dropping the nugget that production on the anime hasn't even started after over a year. Glad to see they're keeping this narrative of crushing disappointment and failure consistent at least. This is normally the part of the show where I summarize everything, make a joke, or say I'm excited or not interested at all in the game. But is that really necessary this time around? This whole Red Ash thing has been a debacle. Way worse than Mighty No. 9. It's hard to say if the game's even coming out at this point, or the anime, and if it does, it very well could be just as bad, if not worse, than Mighty No. 9. These two projects might not be total scams like Confederate Express or Knuckle Club, but they're by far the most damning gaming campaigns to ever get featured on any crowdfunding site. A perfect storm of nostalgia, a creator who seemed to love what he was doing, and constant misstep after lie after broken promise, resulting in one terrible game and a big question mark for another. Inafune went from being the golden boy to a pariah, and anything bearing his name going forward, at least for the next few years, will be intensely scrutinized and made the butt of jokes. Is this fair? Is Inafune truly a scam artist, or was he just in over his head? That, I'll leave up to you to decide.
ケツの毛までむしり取られるぞ。
Hello everybody, I hope you liked the video, because if you didn't, you watched it all for nothing. Not much to announce this week. We have joined forces with Only Salt and Pepper to launch Multiplayer Focus, which is a website all about multiplayer. Weird that a website about spice would want to launch a multiplayer focused video game site, but hey, there you go. We've also welcomed aboard 3 new members: Brian Rumsey, Michael Soriano, and Martin Allen, so give them a round of applause. And remember, if you like this video, why not subscribe to our channel, or give us money on Patreon, or visiting our website, or any number of things. I don't know.